Hi everyone, my name is Mrs. Banham and I'm the reading specialist teacher at Glenfroom Primary School, and I work mainly with year 1 or year 2 children who need that little bit of extra help to get started with their reading. But I also do lots of other things around the school. I support the teachers, I train volunteers, I run workshops, I get the resources for the library and books for school, lots of other things as well. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how we teach children to read in reception. I shall start PowerPoint so you have something to look at. Here we go. So the aims of the session are to understand the importance of reading, learn how to make reading fun, find out about how we teach the letter shapes, which we call graphemes, understand a bit about phonics teaching, learn about tricky words, and look at the new reading books that we have in school this year. Before we start thinking about how we teach the children, just a little on the importance of reading. Reading is one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable thing that children learn to do. And for you as parents, you can have a huge impact on this by encouraging reading at home, making sure the children see you reading, and just making reading really enjoyable for them. And there's research to show that children who enjoy reading and those children who read for pleasure as well do particularly well in other areas of the curriculum and do well generally in life, because reading is such a key skill to opening up other areas. So to do this, we would love it if you could encourage your children to enjoy reading for pleasure, to enjoy just going over and picking up a book and reading when they want to, as well as obviously having a time when you read with them, but encouraging reading in the home generally and letting them see that books are valued, that you enjoy books, and learning to enjoy reading as in a partnership, but also encouraging them to read on their own. So how can we make reading fun? It's really important to read together and choose a good time for reading. It might be before school or after school or nearer bedtime, but choose a good time for you and your child and make it part of the routine. Try and do it every day at the same time so that the children know that it's going to happen and they look forward to it. It's really good if you can try not to have any distractions. Try and put your phone down for a while, switch the television off, move the toys out of the way, or cuddle up on the sofa or on a bed, and encourage a child just to look at the book and nothing else. Make it fun and try and get enthusiastic yourself when you're looking at the book. Singing songs and rhymes are also really important, as are continuing to speak in home languages. It's really important that children hear a language spoken fluently, so do continue to speak and read in your home languages, as well as reading the books that we send home for your children. So how do we start teaching in school? To start with, the children will be looking at the individual letter shapes and learning how to form them correctly, always starting with the little letters, the lowercase letters, and not the capital letters. It's important that they don't write every letter in the capital letters to start with, but they know the little letter shapes first. So if you're working on these at home, really useful for the teachers if you work on the little letters, the lowercase. We use a program called Read Write Inc for teaching the letter shapes, the graphemes, and each of these has a little story that goes with it to help the teacher and the child remember the letter shapes. So, for example, the A shape, we say around the apple and down the leaf. And for the B, down the laces to the heel and round the toe. So we always use the same little sentence to help the child remember, and we say that with them as they are practicing forming the letters. Now, alongside this, we're obviously going to be learning the sounds, and the sounds are what we call phonics. And when we teach these, we'll come on to it in a moment, when we teach these, we don't necessarily teach them in the order of the alphabet, but we teach them in an order that helps the children to start reading as soon as possible. So we teach a group of sounds which they will then use to read simple words straight away. When you are helping your child with phonics and you're helping to teach them to sound words out, it's really important that you try and say the sounds in the same way as we teach them in school. And one thing you need to watch out for is just that you don't put an sound on the end of the phonics when you say them, on the letters when you say them. So when you say the sound k, you need to keep it short and say k and not ka and ba and ga. We want k, b. One thing to think of to help you with that is to imagine a word that starts with that sound, like ball, and just go to say ball, but just start with the first sound. B, b, for ball, and d for dog, d, dog. This can help you as well when it comes to some of the more tricky sounds. So I'll just run through the sounds for you so that you can hear how we like to say them nice and clearly for the children. Normally I would get you all to join in if you were in school having a meeting with me. So maybe in a moment you'd like to press pause and have a go at this and say the sounds as clearly as you can. Imagine a word and cut off the word as you go to say the rest of the word. Try not to put that sound on the end. A, b, k, d, e, f, g, h, I, j, k, l, m, n, o, q, r, s, t, a, v, w, x, y, z. Now there are some there that are obviously more tricky than others. Q, we say cool, as if you're going to say queen or quick, cool. The other tricky ones are W, ooh, as if you're going to say witch or water. Ooh. X, the sound for X is also quite tricky. So imagine if you were saying fox. The sound is x, x. Y is another tricky one. So imagine you're going to say yellow, e, e. Often you hear people saying yeah. Really, if you're trying to be specific, yellow. We don't say yellow, yellow. We say yellow, e. They are quite tricky. Now, this just gives you a little bit of help like I was saying just now, think of a word and those words can help you. V for van, w, water, y, yellow, q for queen, and x for box. We use a program called Jolly Phonics at the moment, and with Jolly Phonics, they have a little story or a little rhyme that helps them remember an action. And it's the actions that we find are really valuable in helping the child to learn the phonics. So, for example, for S, for the sound S, we make the sound we make the shape of a snake in the air with our hand. For A, there's a story about ants, and the ants are running up your arm. So you run your hand up your arm and you go ah, 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 ah. For T, you are imagining you're watching a game of tennis and you turn your head from side to side and say t, 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 t. And there are some actions for every sound to help the children to learn the sound that each letter makes. And as we go farther on, there are even actions for some of the more complicated phonic sounds like O and I and E and or. There are also actions for those as well. Now, I talked a little bit about the order we teach the sounds in reception. This chart here shows you the order we're going to teach them in. The first week, when they start learning phonics, they will learn the sounds S, A, T, and P. So the sounds will be S, A, T, P. Now, to help us and the children to practice, to help us encourage the children to practice these at home, the government has recommended that schools buy some reading books that focus on these sounds. So that after we have taught the sounds, the children have books that just focus on those sounds, or the ones that we have just taught, including the ones from the weeks before, so that they gradually build up so that they can read words with all of those sounds in. So we have bought some books to do that, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Just a bit more about phonics. As I mentioned just now, there are some more complicated sounds, and the children will go on to learn how sometimes letters can be grouped together to make a sound. It might be ch, like in chip, or th, like in this, sh, like in shop, e, like in see, o, like in coat, oi, like in toy, I, like in tie, and like in sister and brother. So there are lots of different sounds, and in a way, in English, there are so many sounds and different ways of representing sounds. It can be very complicated. It's good to play some games when you're practicing your phonics, and we play games in school to help us focus on the skills of blending and segmenting. Now, blending is when you say the sounds and then you blend them together to say the word. And this is a skill that they practice lots in school. So they'll be saying the sounds ah, n, and then we want them to blend the sounds together to say man, man. So you say the sounds separately, ah, n, man, blend them, and then say the word man. To take the word apart, if you're reading a word and saying it apart, you're looking at the word cat and you say k, at. We call that segmenting. We're taking the word apart. We might even say to the children, can you say the sounds? Can you tell me the sounds in bus? B, s, bus. That's segmenting, breaking a word into pieces, into sounds. So these are the skills they need for reading and for writing. You can use magnetic letters at home to do this. I use magnetic letters with my teaching. You can have dice with the letters written on. You can have letter cards, and you can practice reading nice simple words like cat, dog, ran, box, mop, hat, can, top, cup, and bus. Nice simple CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words. Now, if you want any help or want to have a look at any further websites, the Jolly Phonics websites are really useful, and they also show you the songs and actions. And Mr. Thorne does phonics. He has some great YouTube videos that show you how to pronounce the sounds correctly. If you'd like to practice that, they have some showing the individual sounds, and then some videos he has show the more complicated sounds and how to say them as well. Now, alongside phonics and learning phonics, there's another part to reading that is just as important. And this is all about learning words that you cannot sound out. In school, we call these tricky words. They are words that you cannot decode, which means sound out. You just need to know them. And the best way to learn these sorts of words is to have them on little cards and practice them, saying them rapidly as you practice putting the cards down in front of you, saying the words. Words such as said, you cannot break it into the phonics. You cannot say s-a-id, sa-id, or you can't put a in the middle and say s-aid. We just have to know that it's the word said. So the best way, like I said, to do this is to practice them on little cards. And they're words that are used frequently in books. So children need to know these. Initially, they might try and use their sounds, but we just need to say to them, these words, you can't sound them out. We just have to know them. This word is said. Can you say it? Said. This word is the. You say it, the, and keep practicing them like that. And then eventually they should just be able to say them as you put them down. And these are vital skills needed to learn to read. Phonics is very, very important, but also sight, reading words on sight, the tricky words, is also a very important skill. So we want children to learn these right from the start of school. They're going to be taking home some of these words to practice. Now, these 4 sets of words will be sent home on little booklets like this for your children to learn. And the first 4 sets of words, we want them to really practice hard up to Christmas, and we will be giving them some books. Once they know these tricky words, we'll be giving them some books to read that contain the tricky words. But this year, we're going to do things slightly differently. Another way to practice the tricky words, I've already said quick daily practice. There's a game called My Pile, Your Pile that I use in my teaching. We place the words down in front of the children. If they get it right, it goes on their pile. If they get it wrong, it comes on my pile. And they love this game. They like to be a bit competitive. At the end, I always give them a chance to win back the words that are on my pile, so that they can get them all if they're lucky. So we make it fun. And the idea is, again, that they do it quickly. They need to just know them. We need to say them nice and quickly. Said, the, look, in, come, little. So that's the idea, is that we're working on quick fire, rapid recall of these words. You could play bingo with them. You could hide the words around the house and then see if they can find them and tell you what they say. they could see if they could find these words in books or on the wall in the shops, just playing games to help practice these words. Now, we talked about our new reading books. We have some new books this year so that we can really help the children practice the phonics as they learn them. So each time we introduce them a new set of sounds, they will bring home some books the following week with those sounds in there. So we have new books. We will be giving the children the books that we have numbered in the boxes in the corridors, the banded books, but we're going to give them a bit later this year, just after 6 weeks or so. And in the meantime, the children are going to be reading these books, but also learning the tricky words, so that when they get the other books from the corridor, the numbered books, they know the tricky words already. So rather than give you both at once, which is what we have done in the past, we're going to just work on decoding to start with and learning the tricky words alongside that. So the order of teaching sounds, again, S, A, T, and P. So one of the first sets of books will have words with those sounds. Once we start teaching the next set, and they've been taught I, N, M, and D, then the following week they will bring home books that have those sounds in as well. And this system continues all the way through until they have learned all the sounds and taken books home to practice. And this is the system the government has suggested that helps support phonics teaching. That we teach the sounds, the children are then reading them in books to practice. So our new books, they're quite large, they're lovely and colourful, they have great pictures in, and they also have quite a lot of help for you as a parent so that you know you're saying and doing the right things, which I would think would be really useful. They have good questions to ask the children, things to talk about. They have some ideas of vocabulary to teach them as well, so that you're always extending their vocabulary. So to start with, you'll be bringing home these books that have Phonics 1 at the bottom. These are wordless books, and you can see on the back of the book here, it shows you that they are wordless in the blue rectangle there. Inside the cover, it tells you all about how these books work, and it tells you about when you get involved and when the children get involved and what to say and do. In the wordless ones, you are just going to read from the boxes at the bottom of the page that are here, and underlined are some words that they would like you to try and focus on to develop the children's vocabulary. But the idea in the wordless books is that you and the children are looking at the pictures, talking about the story and what's happening. And then when you feel it's a good point to read the section in the purple box, that's when you read that to them. So, oh, look, what are they doing? Oh, they're having ice creams in the park. And what's the pigeon doing? Oh, is he reading the newspaper? What else can you see in the picture? Oh, look, I can see an ice cream van. And I can see the town and the sun and the trees. And so they're having an ice cream. Oh, I think Pip and Kit are eating delicious ice creams. What food do you think is delicious? So on this page, they're wanting you to introduce the word delicious to the children. And it talks about, on the introductory page, it talks about how they might not understand these words at first, but to try and use them with them, and eventually they will pick up the words as you go through the book. But the wordless books are for talking about the pictures, talking about the story, what do they think is happening, why, using the story the pictures in the story to help you talk about what's going on. There are the focus words, the vocabulary that they want you to focus on, underlined there in the text. At the back of the book, there It's a really useful page about comprehension. There is also a bit tells you a bit about what to do before reading and during reading and after reading, and how you can work on the children's comprehension. After the wordless books, we will be moving on to books that have words and books that have words using those phonics that we'll be introducing to the children. So the first phonics that will be introduced will be S, A, T, and P. S, A, T, P. So we have two sorts of books for each set of letters. We have books that are called partner texts, which you share and take it in turns to read with the children. And then there is an independent text. So this is really good. For each group of sounds, the children can read the books with you, and then there are some for them to read on their own. So the first one is called Plum Pudding, and it's a partner text. And it shows you on the back in the blue box the set of sounds that are the focus in this book. Again, a really useful page showing you those sounds, talking about focus, the focus words and the vocabulary, and how to use the book. And on the page here at the top, it shows you that you're going to be reading the page on the left and the child will be reading the page on the right. And you can see that's labelled nice and clearly at the top of the pages there, adult, child. So you're going to read the page on the left, and the child is going to read the words on the right, which in this very first book, the word is pat, 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 pat. And that's the only little bit of reading there the child will do on this page. So we're starting off just reading a few words with each book using the sounds that they've learned. And they should know the sounds by then because they'll have learnt them the week before, and they can sound out the words and say the word. Now at the bottom again, there's that box for you to read when you feel it's appropriate, and there are some more words underlined for you to focus on. On this page, it's the word several, and it's talking about how she has several apples, and several means more than two. So it's introducing some words to the children. And then again at the back, there's a page about comprehension. Comprehension is really an important skill for your children to learn, talking about the book, talking about what's happening in the story. Can they guess what's coming? Can they talk about how they would feel if they were one of the characters in the book? Can they predict what's going to happen on the next page? All those things are really important with early books and comprehension. And then this is one of the independent texts that the child will be reading on their own. Again, it tells you the sounds on the back that will be the focus. And again, it has that useful inside front cover of information. And to start with, on this page, there are no words for the child to read. There's lots of things for you to look at and talk about. And again, a useful box for you to give you some ideas of things to talk about with the child. And then on this page, it shows you some of the words the child is going to be reading, sounding out and reading. And at the back of the book, again, there's a bit of a picture for your child to talk about. Sometimes there's questions, sometimes there's a bit of a game at the back. Again, a good way to finish off the book, talking about the story. So those books are going to be the books that we're going to be sending home for the first 5, 6, 7 weeks or so until they have been taught the phase 2 phonics, which are mostly single sounds. They'll be bringing home those books. Now, we would like you to record their reading in the reading record. We normally use the yellow ones on the left, but in reception classes, the last couple of years, we've been buying the special blue ones because they are fantastic. Inside, they have some really useful pictures and words for you to practice to see if your child knows their phonics. You can tick these off as they go along. And there are pages for recording their reading. And it's really, really important for us to see that they've been reading at home and practicing, and you can write your comments in here. So an overview of the year and which books the children will be reading. For term 1, they'll be learning phonics and tricky words, and they will be reading just the phonetically decodable books, the phonics books. Okay. In term 2, they'll be learning more phonics and more tricky words. Remember, it's vital they learn these tricky words through these first weeks so that they're ready to read our numbered books when we start sending those out, because these are books that have tricky words in. So in term 2, they've been reading more of the phonetically decodable books, but they will start bringing home books from our numbered banded boxes as well. By Christmas, we would hope they are quite confident at reading level 1 and 2 books. And if they've already learnt those tricky words in terms 1 or 2, before they've been bringing those books home, they should be able to read those easily. But they do need to be able to read words like here and little and come before they can read those books. Let me see if I can go back. Around the end of term 4, we'd be expecting them to read the level 4 books from our banded boxes, and then from then on to the end of the school year, we kind of hope that children will be reading around a level 6 or 7, and this is in line with where they need to be at the end of reception, so that they meet the aims for the end of year 1 and then meet the aims for the end of year 2, ready for their SATs. So we have a kind of idea where the average child would be for the end of each term. Obviously, there'll be children who might be reading at a higher level than that, and there might be some children who are reading at a lower level than that. And that is to be expected, that we have a range of children reading at different rates, as with any class. Now, I always finish by trying to encourage you to read with your children, because it's really important that the children get to practice pulling all the skills they learn in school together. And this isn't always something that they have the time to do every day. They're not always able to read a book every day. And to explain this, I normally talk about either cooking or driving. And say to parents, if I was teaching you to cook, and on Mondays we were chopping, on Tuesday we were boiling, on Wednesday we did more chopping, on Thursday we were grating things, and only on a Friday you actually got to cook something and put all of those skills together. It's a bit like that with teaching reading in school. So some sessions they'll be doing phonics, sometimes they'll be doing tricky words, but not every day will they be able to sit down with a book and pull all of those skills together. And this is why reading with parents is so important. And I think that parents don't always get given that message or explain that message of why your role of reading at home is important. And it's to pull all those skills together. So if you only take away one thing from today, please remember to try and read a little bit every day with your children. And thank you very much. Enjoy reading.